The universe, vast and filled with countless galaxies, had always followed a delicate balance. Civilizations rose and fell, and conflicts were a constant undercurrent. Among all the beings, one stood out: humanity. Though young compared to some of the ancient races, they were fiercely resilient, with a spirit that couldn't be broken. But there were moments, rare and unforgettable, that would shape their fate forever. The death of one soldier would become the spark for a war that no one was prepared for. The soldier, a young human by the name of Elias, had been stationed on a remote world. It was a planet that seemed insignificant to the universe. Its name was barely recognized outside the military archives, a place where wars were fought in the shadows, far from the attention of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Elias was just one of many soldiers assigned to protect this isolated post, and to him, it was nothing more than another assignment. A simple mission, nothing more. The mission, however, would end in tragedy. Elias had been sent to secure the outskirts of a hostile city that was known to be a hotbed of alien insurgents. His unit had been assigned to eliminate any threats, and as far as they knew, they were simply following orders. They had done it countless times before: find the insurgents, neutralize them, and return to base. But this time, things went wrong. Elias and his team were ambushed. They hadn't expected it. The insurgents had set a trap. They had done their homework, and the humans had walked right into it. Blasts of gunfire rang out, and in the chaos, Elias was hit. A shot to his chest left him on the ground, struggling for breath. His team tried to get to him, but the insurgents were everywhere. It was a fight they couldn't win. Elias, despite his injuries, didn't surrender. He fought, not just for his own life, but for his comrades, for his people, and for his home. But in the end, it wasn't enough. He fell, his body lifeless on the harsh terrain of a world that was not his own. His death, while tragic, seemed like just another casualty in a long list of soldiers lost in an endless war. What happened next, however, would change everything. When news of Elias's death reached Earth, it was met with shock and disbelief. His family grieved, his friends mourned, but it wasn't just personal loss that gripped the human race. The message came with something far more significant. The death of a soldier was not just a number, it was a symbol. And the universe was about to find out what it meant to angered humanity. As the military command received the report, they could not ignore the gravity of the situation. Elias was no ordinary soldier. He was a son of Earth, a symbol of humanity's sacrifices in an endless conflict. His death became the breaking point, the catalyst that would spark something far greater than anyone could have predicted. At first, no one knew how to respond. Earth had never been known for quick retaliation. Their military strategies were calculated, precise, and never rushed. But this was different. This wasn't just a soldier's death. This was a call to action. Elias's sacrifice had awoken a deep primal anger that ran through every human who learned of it. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now they would pay. The first signs of humanity's reaction were subtle. It started with a small message broadcast across the stars. This will not go unpunished. No one took it seriously at first. It seemed like just another empty threat. But those who had studied human history knew better. The human spirit was not to be underestimated. And then, the first act of vengeance was carried out. A fleet of human ships, their engines roaring like thunder, launched into deep space, heading toward the insurgent homeworld where Elias had fallen. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as Earth's forces arrived. No one had expected this. The humans were quick, efficient, and brutal. In a matter of hours, the insurgents' world was reduced to rubble, their cities burning, their military destroyed. But this was only the beginning. The death of Elias was no longer just a personal loss. It had become a rallying cry for all of humanity. The universe had underestimated Earth, and now, they would witness what happened when you pushed humans too far. The response from the galaxy was swift. The larger empires began to mobilize their forces, thinking they could easily quell what they assumed was a small, angry race looking for revenge. But they failed to understand the magnitude of humanity's anger. It wasn't just about Elias anymore. It was about the pride of a species, the lives of every human who had ever fought, bled, and died for their home. The first casualty in the war that would soon erupt across the stars had been a single soldier, but his death would serve as a warning to all. The fall of Elias was not the end of his story. It was the beginning of a new chapter in the history of humanity, a chapter that would forever change the course of the galaxy. As the universe prepared for what was to come, one truth became clear. Humanity's wrath was unstoppable, and it was just beginning. The universe had always been a place of chaos and conflict, but nothing had ever prepared it for the wrath of humanity. As the message from Earth echoed across the stars, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the inevitable response. They had underestimated humans before, and now, it seemed, they would pay the price for their mistake. The death of one soldier had ignited a fire that could not be extinguished. The leaders of the galaxy, from the most ancient species to the most powerful empires, were forced to take notice. For years, they had seen Earth as a young, developing race, not yet capable of challenging the established order. They had watched as humanity sent soldiers to distant planets, each time with little more than a quiet threat and a small military presence. They had seen humanity as weak, a species that could be manipulated, a race to be controlled. But they were wrong. Earth's response to Elias's death shattered the illusion. The destruction of the insurgent world was only the beginning. Earth's military, under the guidance of its most skilled commanders, mobilized at an unprecedented speed. They had not only the power of advanced technology at their disposal, but something far more dangerous, the fury of an entire species united by grief and anger. The first major battle in the war took place near the edge of Earth's territory, in a region of space that was home to several powerful alien empires. The humans were not the only ones with weapons of mass destruction. The galaxy was filled with advanced fleets, each one more powerful than the last. The alien forces sent their own fleets to intercept humanity's forces, certain that the humans would crumble under the weight of their superior technology. But what they did not account for was humanity's unrelenting determination. The first battle was brutal. The humans fought with a ferocity that left their enemies stunned. They didn't just fight for survival. They fought for vengeance, for the memory of Elias and every other soldier who had fallen before him. They fought not just for their own people, but for every human who had ever dreamed of a better future. The battle raged for hours, but in the end, it was clear who had won. The alien fleets, despite their advanced technology, had underestimated humanity's ingenuity and sheer willpower. The humans didn't rely solely on their technology. They adapted, learned, and improvised, turning the tide of battle in their favor. When the final shots were fired, and the debris from the destroyed ships floated in the cold expanse of space, the message was clear. Humanity was not to be taken lightly. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now they would feel the consequences. As the days turned to weeks and the war spread across the stars, Earth's military power continued to grow. The galaxy had no idea how to respond. The larger empires, confident in their ability to crush the humans, found themselves on the defensive. No one had expected the humans to be so relentless, so aggressive in their pursuit of revenge. The humans didn't just want to win. They wanted to make sure that everyone knew that the death of Elias and the countless others who had fallen before him would never be forgotten. The war took on a life of its own. It was no longer just about one soldier's death. It was about the pride of humanity, the refusal to let their people be treated as insignificant. Every battle, every skirmish became a message, a declaration that humanity would not be silenced. The galaxies trembled as they realized that the humans were not just fighting for vengeance. They were fighting for their place in the universe. In the midst of the chaos, a new leader emerged, General Samantha Harris. A woman known for her strategic brilliance, she became the face of humanity's war effort. Her speeches, broadcast across the stars, inspired her people and terrified their enemies. "We fight for every life that was lost," she said in one of her most famous addresses. "We fight for our future, and we will not stop until the universe knows the cost of underestimating humanity." Under her command, Earth's military grew stronger, more organized, and more dangerous. Every alien fleet that faced them was met with overwhelming force, and with each victory, the humans' reputation spread further. They were no longer just a young race. They were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy watched in horror as humanity's vengeance spread, knowing that they were not just fighting a war, they were fighting a message. And as the war raged on, one thing became clear to the galaxy. Humanity's wrath was unstoppable, and the consequences of their actions would echo throughout the stars for generations to come. The death of one soldier had turned into the catalyst for an empire-shaking war, and the universe would never be the same again. The price of underestimating humanity had been paid, and it was a price that no one in the galaxy could afford. The war raged on, and the galaxy trembled under the weight of humanity's relentless pursuit of justice. As the humans continued their unstoppable march, the once mighty alien empires began to crumble. The ruthless efficiency of humanity's forces was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't just their weapons or technology. It was their fierce determination, a drive that burned through every soldier, every commander, every citizen. The leaders of the alien empires had made the grave mistake of thinking the death of a single human soldier would not matter. They thought they could crush the humans without consequence. But now, they were realizing the terrible truth. Humanity was a force that could not be silenced. At the heart of the human military was General Samantha Harris, a symbol of strength and unyielding resolve. Her strategic brilliance had turned the tide of battle in humanity's favor time and time again. It wasn't just her tactics that set her apart. It was her ability to inspire her soldiers. When she spoke, they listened. When she commanded, they followed without question. Her leadership had become the beacon that guided humanity's war effort. But it wasn't just the humans who were being tested. The alien empires, once proud and powerful, found themselves in a position they had never expected. The war was no longer just about the destruction of a few planets or the elimination of a troublesome species. It had become a fight for survival. Each alien fleet that faced humanity's forces was overwhelmed, torn apart by the sheer force of the humans' determination. The galaxy's greatest minds scrambled to find a way to defeat humanity, but every plan they devised was countered by the humans' ingenuity. The humans had a way of adapting, learning from each battle, and using their enemies' weaknesses against them. It was as if they were 2 steps ahead at every turn. The war had become a symphony of destruction. Humanity had no intention of stopping until every last one of their enemies had been brought to justice. The death of Elias had been the spark, but now it was the fury of millions of humans, fighting not just for revenge, but for the survival of their species, for their right to exist in the galaxy. In the midst of the chaos, a new strategy was devised. The humans, who had once been scattered and divided, were now unified under a single cause: to make sure that no one would ever again dare to harm one of their own. Earth's military began targeting the very heart of the alien empires, striking at their homeworlds and crippling their ability to fight back. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as entire star systems fell. Alien civilizations, once thought invincible, now lay in ruins. The war had become a brutal reminder of humanity's strength, a lesson that no one would soon forget. As the humans made their way through the stars, they left behind nothing but the remnants of empires that had thought themselves untouchable. But amidst the destruction, there was a deeper message, one that resonated throughout the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were not just a race of soldiers. They were a people united by something far more powerful than technology or weapons. They were united by a shared belief that they had the right to live, to exist, and to protect each other. And if anyone threatened that right, they would face the full wrath of humanity's fury. As the war neared its end, it became clear that the galaxy would never be the same. The once feared alien empires, broken and defeated, could only watch as humanity's flag flew high across the stars. General Harris stood at the front of the human forces, her face a symbol of victory, but her eyes filled with the sorrow of what had been lost. Elias's death, and the countless others who had fallen in the war, would never be forgotten. Their sacrifice had not only secured humanity's place in the galaxy, but had also shown the universe the true cost of underestimating humankind. The stars were silent for a moment, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. And then, in the distance, the sound of humanity's victory echoed, a reminder to all that the cost of killing a single human was far greater than anyone could have imagined. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson: never, ever cross the line with humanity. Humanity had made its mark, and the universe would never forget it. The cost of their vengeance had been steep, but the galaxy now knew the price of their wrath, and from that day forward, no one would ever dare to harm a human again. As the dust of war settled, and the wreckage of once mighty alien fleets scattered across the stars, humanity stood victorious. The galaxy, still echoing with the sounds of destruction, could only watch in awe at the sheer scale of what had just occurred. The human forces, relentless and unyielding, had torn through every defense, every obstacle, leaving nothing in their wake but devastation. It was a sight no one had ever predicted. No one thought humanity could achieve such a feat, and yet, here they were, standing tall, their banner flying high across the galaxy. General Samantha Harris, now a name feared by every alien race, stood at the front of her forces, her heart heavy with the weight of victory. The faces of those she had lost, the soldiers who had fought and died for the cause, filled her thoughts. She had led them into battle, guided them through the darkest times, and yet the victory felt bittersweet. It was the cost of war that weighed heavily on her, every lost life, every fallen soldier. Elias's death was not an isolated tragedy. It was just one of countless others that had paved the way for this moment. As the war came to an end, the surviving alien empires, crippled and broken, had little choice but to acknowledge humanity's strength. The leaders of these once proud civilizations were forced to retreat, their power shattered. Many of them were left to wonder how they had miscalculated so badly. How had they underestimated humanity? How had they thought that killing a single human child could go unpunished? The cost of that mistake was clear now. The death of one child had led to the destruction of entire star systems, the downfall of empires, and the complete reshaping of the galaxy's power structure. In the wake of humanity's triumph, the remaining alien races were left with two choices: bend to humanity's will or face utter annihilation. Earth's forces, led by General Harris, now controlled the galaxy's most important trade routes, its most strategic planets, and its most valuable resources. But it was not just their power that set them apart. It was their determination. The humans had a singular focus, a drive that no one could match. And that drive had carried them through the darkest days of war. But victory, though sweet, came with its own set of challenges. As the galaxy watched humanity's rise, many wondered what would come next. Would they continue their relentless advance, expanding their empire across the stars? Would they impose their will on every civilization they encountered? Or would they find a way to rebuild, to focus on peace and healing after the years of conflict? General Harris, standing at the head of her victorious forces, knew that the answer was not simple. She had witnessed the horrors of war firsthand, seen the suffering and loss that came with it. But she also understood the harsh realities of the galaxy. The alien races had forced humanity into a corner, and humanity had responded with unrelenting force. Now, it was time to decide how to move forward. The galaxy was a changed place. The old powers had fallen, and a new order had begun to emerge, one where humanity stood at the forefront. But even as they celebrated their victory, the question remained: how would they handle the power they had gained? Would they rule with an iron fist, or would they seek to rebuild and form a new, more peaceful galaxy? The answer was still unknown, But one thing was clear. Humanity had proven that they could not be ignored. As the leaders of the surviving alien empires gathered, they couldn't help but look at humanity with fear. They had thought that a single human life could be extinguished without consequence, but now they knew better. The cost of crossing humanity was far higher than they had ever imagined. The universe would never be the same again. The balance of power had shifted, and with it, the course of history. And for humanity, this victory was just the beginning. The stars no longer belonged to the old empires, and the galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. When humanity is pushed too far, they will respond with a vengeance that can topple entire civilizations. They would never forget the cost of Elias's death, and neither would the galaxy. The wrath of humanity had been unleashed, and the universe would now have to learn to live with the consequences. In the quiet aftermath of the war, General Harris stood gazing into the stars, her thoughts a mixture of pride, sorrow, and uncertainty. What lay ahead for humanity, she did not know. But one thing was certain: humanity would never be underestimated again, and the galaxy would forever remember the cost of crossing a human. The ruins of alien fleets floated in the emptiness of space, remnants of what had once been powerful, seemingly invincible civilizations. Across the shattered remains of worlds, the silence spoke volumes. The galaxy had never seen a conflict like this, and as humanity's ships began to return to Earth, carrying both survivors and the weight of their monumental victory, there was a palpable sense of change in the air. General Harris stood before the assembled forces in the command center of the flagship, her gaze focused not on the displays, but on the stars beyond the viewport. Her mind raced, processing the gravity of what had just occurred. They had won, utterly and completely. The alien forces that had once threatened to crush Earth were now in ruins. But in the aftermath of such an overwhelming victory, she couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. What would they do now? How would they reshape this galaxy that had never seen humanity's true potential until now? It had taken everything to get here. The loss of so many good soldiers, the death of Elias, the child whose innocence had sparked this terrifying storm of destruction. Humanity had paid a terrible price, but even in the face of loss, Earth had triumphed. And the galaxy would never forget the name of Elias, the child whose death sparked the wrath that reshaped the cosmos. However, now that the dust had settled and the survivors had returned home, General Harris couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy's future was more fragile than it appeared. Victory didn't guarantee peace. In fact, it could be the very thing that sparked even greater conflict. Humanity had been pushed to the edge, but they had proven themselves capable of unimaginable power. With Earth now the dominant force in the galaxy, every other civilization had to decide how to react. Would they accept the new order or fight against it? Would they seek revenge for the devastation that had been wrought upon them? The future was uncertain, and humanity's next steps would determine the fate of not only Earth but the entire galaxy. Back on Earth, the leadership was already in debate. There were those who wanted to continue the campaign, to push further into space, to conquer and bring the galaxy under human control. They saw the victory as just the beginning, a chance to expand humanity's reach and influence beyond what anyone had ever imagined. And there were others, led by influential diplomats and peacekeepers, who advocated for rebuilding, for healing the wounds that had been inflicted by the war. Both sides were compelling, and both sides had valid points. Humanity had fought long and hard for this moment, and they had the power to shake the galaxy to their will. But at what cost? What would it mean for Earth to rule the stars in the same way the alien empires had once tried to do? Would they fall into the same cycle of violence and war? Or could they break free of it and create something new, something better? As the debates raged on Earth, in the far reaches of the galaxy, the remnants of the alien forces gathered in secret. They knew they could not face humanity in open conflict again, not after seeing the sheer force of Earth's retribution. But they were not ready to surrender. The galaxy had not forgotten the old power structures, and some still believed that humanity's rise was an accident, a fluke of circumstance that could be reversed. They planned, they plotted, and they prepared for the day when they might strike back. The newly formed Galactic Council, now under the influence of Earth's power, tried to stabilize the galaxy, but even they understood the tension that was building. It was a delicate peace, one held together by the fact that no one dared challenge humanity, but it was far from secure. The council members, once confident in their ability to control the galaxy, now found themselves living in the shadow of human power. For General Harris, this was the greatest challenge. Winning the war was one thing, but keeping the peace was something else entirely. The galaxy had seen the wrath of humanity once, and it would not forget. But what if that same wrath turned inward? What if Earth's victory was not the end of the war, but the beginning of a new kind of conflict? The human forces were spread across the galaxy, stationed on key planets and systems, their presence a constant reminder of what Earth had accomplished. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, there was a growing realization that true peace would not come easily. The scars of war ran deep, and trust would not be restored overnight. And yet, even as the challenges mounted, even as the whispers of resistance spread across the stars, General Harris knew one thing: humanity would never be the same again. Earth's vengeance had shown the galaxy that humans were a force to be reckoned with, and no one would ever make the mistake of underestimating them again. The price of crossing humanity had been steep, but the cost of defying them would be far worse. As the galaxy took its first tentative steps into this new era, no one knew where it would lead. The old power structures were gone, replaced by something unknown. The galaxy was on the edge of a new chapter, one that would either see humanity rise as the uncontested ruler of the stars or force them into a future where they would have to fight to hold on to everything they had gained. But one thing was certain: the galaxy had learned the hard way that humanity was not a force to be ignored. The universe would never forget the cost of killing a single human, and it would forever tremble at the thought of what humanity might do next. In the days following their victory, the stars themselves seemed to whisper of humanity's new place in the universe. The silence of the galaxy felt heavy, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Earth had won, but victory had brought with it not only a sense of triumph, but also an immense weight. The cost of that victory was clear, and General Harris could see it etched in the faces of the soldiers who returned to Earth. Every face carried the burden of loss, of the cost paid in blood for their triumph. As humanity's military leaders stood at the helm of their new empire, they began to make decisions that would shape the galaxy for generations to come. Some saw this moment as a chance to establish a new world order, a chance to take their place as rulers of the stars. Earth, after all, had proven its strength. It had taken down the mightiest of alien empires. And yet there was a question that hung in the air, one that gnawed at the hearts of those who had lived through the war. At what cost? The idea of spreading Earth's power to other worlds, to subjugate and dominate as their alien adversaries had once done, was tempting. But there were others, those who had seen the horrors of war firsthand, who believed humanity had already paid too high a price. General Harris was torn between the two paths. On one hand, she understood the call to assert humanity's dominance over the stars. But on the other, she knew that the very act of domination could lead humanity down the same dark path that had led to the death of the child and the destruction of entire civilizations. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, remnants of the defeated alien empires were not simply accepting their fate. In the shadows, on desolate planets and forgotten moons, the leaders of the fallen races were gathering, nursing their wounds, and plotting their next moves. They knew they could not challenge humanity directly. The cost of that kind of conflict was too high. But the memory of their humiliation and defeat stung, and many of them were unwilling to simply bow to humanity's might. In secret meetings, they began to forge alliances, whispering of a time when humanity might be vulnerable. They believed that while humanity had struck hard, they were not invincible. And so, They began to rebuild their forces, training new generations of soldiers, preparing weapons, and seeking out ancient technologies that had been hidden away for centuries. At the same time, a movement began to stir within the Galactic Council. There were those who wanted to bring humanity into the fold, to make Earth a part of the broader galactic community once again. They saw the destruction humanity had caused as a necessary evil, a reaction to the cruelty and conquest of the old empires. They believed that humanity's strength could help keep the peace in a way that the former galactic powers could never have imagined. But they also understood that Earth's new role in the galaxy was one of both opportunity and immense danger. Back on Earth, the people were divided. Some celebrated their newfound status, proud of what they had achieved, while others questioned whether the violence had truly been justified. Could humanity really take its place as the ruler of the galaxy, or would they become the very thing they had once fought against? The debate raged within the halls of Earth's government and among its leaders. There was no clear answer, only uncertainty. General Harris was haunted by the same question. She had seen what humanity was capable of in the heat of battle, but now she had to face the question of whether Earth's newfound strength would be used for good or for domination. It was a terrifying thought, one that kept her up at night. The stakes were higher than ever before. As the political landscape on Earth continued to shift, so too did the efforts of the alien coalitions. Earth had struck first, and it had struck hard, but there were factions in the galaxy who believed that humanity's time in the spotlight was coming to an end. They were already organizing, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. They were taking note of humanity's vulnerabilities, looking for ways to exploit any weaknesses that might exist. And so, the stage was set. A fragile peace was held together by a delicate thread, but it was clear that it would not last forever. The question of whether humanity would continue down the path of vengeance and dominance, or whether they would choose a different path, would determine the future of the galaxy. General Harris knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never forget the cost of the human wrath that had brought the stars to their knees. And as much as humanity had proven its strength, the journey ahead would not be easy. The galaxy would never again look at Earth with the same eyes. Fear, awe, and uncertainty now clouded the view of humanity. And as for Earth's future, it remained uncertain, hanging in the balance between light and darkness, vengeance and peace. As Earth's political landscape continued to shift, the ripple effects of the war reverberated across the galaxy. The power vacuum left by the destruction of the old empires created an unpredictable environment. No longer was there a single dominant force that controlled the stars. Earth's rise had shifted the entire balance of power, and the galaxy was watching. What had once seemed like an unstoppable force of nature, a human army moving across the stars in relentless pursuit of vengeance, was now slowly morphing into something much more complex, something that both frightened and intrigued the galactic community. General Harris, the hero who had led humanity to victory, felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier with each passing day. Her army had crushed their enemies. But now, the challenge was to maintain control over this newfound power. The voices of those who advocated for peace were growing louder, warning of the dangers of continuing the cycle of vengeance. And yet, there were others who saw this moment as an opportunity for Earth to secure its place as the supreme power of the galaxy. They believed the galaxy needed a firm hand, and that humanity was the one to provide it. But as Harris met with Earth's council, she began to see the cracks in their unity. A division was forming, a tension between those who wanted peace and those who craved dominance. Every decision felt more and more like a dangerous gamble. She knew the galaxy was watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. The former galactic powers were not idle in their defeat. Slowly, cautiously, the remnants of the alien empires began to rebuild, their hatred for humanity simmering beneath the surface. They knew they couldn't match Earth in raw power. Not yet. But they weren't about to let the humans control the stars forever. They began to forge alliances, sending emissaries to distant worlds, rebuilding weapons, and seeking out hidden technologies that would allow them to challenge Earth. Their patience was unmatched. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had made enemies on every corner. Meanwhile, on Earth, there was no clear consensus on how to proceed. The public was divided. The veterans of the war carried the weight of victory with pride, their eyes fixed on the stars, convinced that humanity's strength would lead to prosperity and peace. But there was also a growing voice of dissent. Many began to question whether the victory was worth the price. They questioned whether the galaxy would ever be able to forgive them, whether humanity could live with the consequences of its wrath. The war had left deep scars, and those scars were now beginning to show. General Harris found herself struggling to reconcile the different factions, each with their own vision of humanity's future. As the debates raged on Earth, she looked toward the stars, wondering if humanity's time in the galaxy was truly as secure as it seemed. Were the alliances that Earth had forged with the remaining galactic powers fragile, or had they formed something lasting? She knew that one wrong move could unravel everything. The faintest sign of weakness, the smallest hesitation, could send everything into chaos. And yet there was no turning back. Earth had crossed a line, and the galaxy would never forget the cost of that first act of vengeance. Humanity's future now rested in the balance, teetering between the desire for peace and the temptation of domination. General Harris was well aware that the galaxy was a dangerous place. Even with all of humanity's might, there were forces out there who would not hesitate to take advantage of any vulnerability. In the back of her mind, she could hear the whispers of a growing threat, an ancient race that had been lurking in the shadows, biding its time. The whispers spoke of a force so ancient, so powerful, that even Earth's wrath might not be enough to stop them. As humanity continued to rebuild, so too did the remnants of the galactic empires. They had learned from their past mistakes, and now they were preparing for a future where humanity's strength might not be enough to keep them in check. The war had shown them that Earth was capable of terrifying destruction, but it had also shown them that Earth was not invincible. The galaxy was entering a new era, one where peace and power coexisted, where alliances were fragile and betrayal was always a step away. Humanity's dominance was far from assured, and the future remained uncertain. The question remained, could Earth maintain its newfound strength, or would it fall to the forces it had so ruthlessly defeated? Only time would tell. And as General Harris stood at the precipice of this uncertain future, she knew one thing for certain. Humanity's wrath had changed the galaxy forever. But now, the question was whether that wrath could be controlled, or whether it would destroy everything in its path.